to all of you. On behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, I welcome all the participants, the distinguished speakers to the panel discussion on why does it make business sense for gender diversity in the workplace. This session is organized under the aegis of Human Resource and Women Empowerment and Leadership Expert Committee. The expert committee is driven by Dr. Augustus and Lavanya. And before handing it over to Lavanya, I'll just introduce Lavanya to the participants. Lavanya is the co-chair of Human Resource and Women Empowerment and Leadership Expert Committee. She is also the CFO of Zivame. She is a chartered accountant and cost accountant and has over 20 years of experience in different areas of finance. She is highly accomplished professional with a proven track record of establishing cross-functional partnerships along with strategic thinking. She was leading the D&I program in Nike India. She is passionate about creating a balanced work environment where equal opportunity exists for everyone. On behalf of BCIC, we also extend a hearty welcome to all the speakers, and we express our sincere thanks for the speakers for accepting our invitation to join for this session. Ms. Seema Shenoy, Geeta Srinivas, Mr. Somesh Addy, and Nirja Ganesh, who is moderating the session. Over to you, Lavanya. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rupa. Thank you so much for your work. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to actually e-meet all of you. So it's needless to say the kind of interest what the session is kind of creating. Uh, uh, Gender. Being a finance leader at Zivame, I cannot kind of really vouch this brand. We obviously promote in a large way. Okay, for people who are attending the session for the first time with BCIC,
Lavanya, your audio seems to be having some problems.
We did sessions. Is it better now, Augie?
Keep speaking. You're going in and out. Keep speaking. Thanks.
Okay, so see, we have been actually, kind of doing a lot of events around HR, women healthcare. We did a lot of events on corporate leadership. We did a financial awareness event and also events personal branding. So we make an endeavor to organize events which are based on the current trends and which our members find it relevant for both their employees and their kind of workforce. On behalf of the chamber, I welcome our panelists, Seema Shenoy, Somesh, Geeta, and Neeraja, who will be, moderating this session. Coming to today's topic on why business should promote gender diversity, right? While everybody understands and agrees that we need to promote gender diversity, as such across all levels, need not be only at the lower levels, push it to up to leadership level, but there is still a lot needs to be achieved. And the current format of the program is to actually share the best practices, what most of the corporates have, and also share our personal stories about how we have kind of helped promote this gender diversity within our organization and also for ourselves. I could at least kind of speak that for myself. Personally, gender diversity for me is is when we create equal opportunities for everyone, both men and women, without any kind of biases. This is something which changed for me after coming to Zivame, because always have worked in an org where it was more men, but in Zivame we have a ratio of about 75 to 25. So suddenly the concept of diversity kind of changed for me after I joined Zivame, and I'll be happy to share a couple of stories around that as part of today's discussion. We will be discussing what are the challenges, what are the stereotypes which we need to kind of overcome to ensure that we promote fair fair practices in our organization to create equal opportunities for everyone. With that, I take the opportunity to actually introduce Neeraja, who will be moderating this session. Neeraja, I hope everybody can see Neeraja. Yes, okay. Yeah, Neeraja will be moderating today's session. She has over 25 years of professional experience in information technology and has led large teams, delivered IT projects in areas of operational excellence and customer delight for large banking captives. She has mentored and coached new leaders, first-time leaders, to understand their leadership style and utilize their strengths to grow themselves and their teams, and has driven a lot of D&I programs in many organizations where she has been part of. She was the head of jobs for her foundation, which was set up to bridge the gender gaps in the country. She has been invited across in various forums to deliver talks on variety of topics with intent to inspire, educate, and transform mindset of the audience. Neeraja, over to you.
Thank you so much. I had a bit of a challenge with my laptop and the internet connection and had to suddenly switch over to my daughters. So you will see me as Sneha Ganesh. I'm not able to rename myself, but that is Neeraja Ganesh. I'm sorry for that name problem there. So good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be with you all and to be able to moderate this wonderful discussion, which Lavanya has already set the stage for. So we're going to be talking about why does it make business sense for gender diversity in the workplace, and of course we've heard enough and more about we need to have gender diversity. But today we are really going to speak about the why in terms of how does it really help us. Regardless of what sector we come from, regardless of what industry we come from, whether we are a large corporation or a startup, how is it really going to help us improve our productivity as well as the business outcomes? So let me just kind of read out something that some of you may have already read about. The World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report, there's a report which comes out every year. So this is a 2020 report. Said that India ranked 112 out of 153 countries. However, so they rank us on different parameters, on the education level of women and many other things, the political inclusiveness of women. On the economic opportunity and participation, we were ranked 149 out of 153. Now, that's not a pleasant rank to be at. The labor force participation of women in India shows a declining trend, lowest along with Saudi Arabia and UAE, in spite of increasing per capita income and increasing education. High attrition and a high gender pay gap are attributes that cause this declining trend. While one can look at this as a matter of despair, it also presents a $1 trillion opportunity. So reports also state that increasing women's labor force participation by even 10 percentage points could add $770 billion to India's GDP by 2025. So if India could just rebalance its workforce, the world's largest democracy that we are would be 27% richer. So I'm sure all of us really want to, move towards that. So today we're going to talk to some of the leaders across all the sectors to understand what is being done to make gender diversity, specifically on the women, not only a numbers game, but make opportunities available to women such that they are able to navigate the challenges across all ranks and at every stage of their professional advancement. Let me quickly introduce the panelists who we have today. We have Mr. Somesh Audi. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Verifax Services Private Limited. He comes with a diverse experience of overall 20 plus years in the ITES and BPO industry, banking financial services, having hands-on experience of heading a profit center. Verifax is a background verification company specializing in the field of candidate authentication program. Headquartered in Bangalore with 6 other branches in India, Verifax provides its services to a large number of multinational and national companies worldwide, 600 plus clients and growing. Let me introduce Seema Shenoy, who's our next panelist. She's the Director, HR and People Practices, Inkture Technologies. She comes with an enriching experience of over 15 years in managing key HR practices for multiple organizations spanning retail, media, BPO, and information technology. At Inkture, she leads the HR function, managing a team of 20 people across business HR, talent acquisition, and L&D functions. She is responsible for strategic business partnering with global leaders to turn around the people capacity and capabilities within their units. She also drives her high-performance culture through consistent focus on people enablement and development, best-in-class engagement practices, and continuous learning programs. Welcome, Somesh and Seema. The next panelist that we have is Ms. Geeta Srinivas. She is the Managing Director of Ecolab Businesses in India. She is responsible for driving operational excellence and the overall growth of Ecolab's businesses, Ecolab, Nalco Water, and Nalco Champion in India. With more than 18 years of experience, Geeta has held increasingly complex and impactful business-focused positions in the industrial oil and gas sector. She brings a gamut of expertise in international sales, business development, profit and loss management, M&A, divestment, and joint ventures. Welcome, Geeta. And our fourth panelist for today is Lavanya. Lavanya Pasichia is the co-chairperson of Human Resources and Women Empowerment and Leadership Expert Committee at BCIC. She is also the CFO of Zivami. She is a chartered accountant and cost accountant and has over 20 years of experience in different areas of finance. She is a highly accomplished, result-driven finance professional with a proven track record of establishing cross-functional partnerships along with strategic thinking and execution excellence to achieve stellar results. She was leading the D&I, which is Diversity and Inclusion Program in Nike India. She's passionate about creating a balanced work environment where equal opportunities exist for everyone. So we have a power-packed panel today, leaders who have had many years of experience across industries, a variety of roles, and they have also shown the leadership and enabled their organizations to look at an inclusive workforce and a much higher level of diversity than what the WEF report actually showcases and speaks to us about. So let's get into asking them, how did they manage to achieve this? So let me start with the first question to the panel. Let's first understand the unique skills that women bring into the organization as team members as well as leaders, which leads to the productivity improvements and better business outcomes. Geeta, can we start with you?
Hi, sure. Thanks, Neeraja. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. And I thank BCIC for giving me this opportunity to be part of this panel. And this is something that I'm very passionate about and have been associated with BCIC for the last 2 years. Right. Thank you for this. And it's a great question, Neeraja. The fact that we are having this discussion means we are divided. We do not see equality in our workforce. And it's not our differences that really divide us. It's actually our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences, which is why we are having this discussion. And I hope someday that these discussions end. That means we have achieved a 50-50 equal opportunity situation, right? You know, a recent study conducted by McKinsey found that traditional workplace behaviors, such as control, corrective actions, financial discipline, individualistic decisions, etc., are going to be least critical for future successes. Instead, participation, participative decision making, empathy, setting expectations, people development, diversity of thought, and actions are going to be the leadership traits that are going to be required for future business transformations. Now, why am I saying this? Because the past year has critically taught us that communications, multitasking, empathy, patience are going to be more important than ever. And women naturally come with these traits. They are mediators of these traits. They are generous, persuasive, they're very result focused, productive, very focused on productivity improvements and the business outcomes. Does it mean they are better? No. There is never a comparison as to who is better, who is not. This is more of a pitch that, based on my experience of working with diverse work cultures, I see this as a very, very strong trait in women, right? Traditionally, organizations have been providing roles to women in non core functions, right? I mean, if we do a history check, we'll see diversity has always been a number, but now it's moving from a number to quality behind the number, right? So we are seeing very strong presence in operations, finance, sales, marketing, and even in board positions, right? Because they bring in a huge diverse perspective, they are able to manage it with very high emotional intelligence. And I have seen this, be it my sales teams, I always insist that we do have a strong balance with women, because the kind of conviction with which they drive results, I don't know sometimes what it is that they can bring in, simple things like price increases, which much faster than the other colleagues. I'm not biased about it, but I do see them contributing very, very strongly, equally and more sometimes, right? So some of these skills that are very unique to women are very important to be part of boardroom discussions, meeting rooms, and as part of customer discussions as well.
Thank you so much, Geeta. Let us hear a male perspective on this. Somesh, would you like to tell us?
Thank you, Nirja, and thanks to BCIC for giving me this opportunity. Just as you mentioned, Nirja, it's now that I realize that apart from Augie, who's on the chair, I'm the only male person on the panel, so increases the pressure that much more. But it's about diversity, so I have to take it right. So I'll take it from where Geeta kind of left it. So there are some eminent qualities, that we find in our women workforce in terms of their ability to handle the work-life balance. They're very patient and great listeners. Multitasking is something which comes very naturally to them, and they have something which is a sense of inclusion, which comes very naturally. Now, per me, it is a combination of these natural instincts that women become extremely powerful in the workforce. Uh, it gives a very diverse perspective. I have seen from very close angles that how women treat their people or people in their teams and how they participate in those discussions, and it's extremely convenient for people, or it's very comfortable for people to go up and share personal problems that they also have, so that a very meaningful outcome is always the path that is finally achieved. So I think empathy, as we all talk about in our lives, is something very key, and these are some of the natural qualities that come out of women, and that's where, per me, diversity, I think, plays a major role. Again, I think as Lavanya was introducing and what she said, that it's not about women alone. Men also play a very equal part and a very important part about it. And it's how we complement each other, right? That's the best part of it. As we grow organizations, and we've been hearing diversity and inclusions for years put together, and I'll be surprised if we don't hear it in some in years coming by, because it's not a one-time process. It's a continuous process, right? And there are multiple sectors. So there are organized sectors, there are unorganized sectors. While we are sitting here as leaders, we are talking about the organized sectors. But it's also very important for us to look at the unorganized sectors and see how diversity is promoted at the grassroots level there as well. Because Nirja, you pointed at some statistics in terms of the Indian economy and how India is placed and all of that, right? It will not move alone with the corporate sector or the organized sectors moving. I just like to give a very small example, right? So there is a gas station which is close to there are multiple gas stations which are close to my house where I stay in. And I stay in the slightly rural part of Bangalore, right? Where you can make out, and the reason I mentioned rural is the acceptability of diversity is so much more unorganized there. Out of the 4 or 5 gas stations there is one particular gas station which employs a lot of women employees, right? Trust me, me and a lot of people from my apartment, we actually make a very conscious effort to go and do the filling from that particular gas station, because that promotes, or it encourages the owner that he's doing something right. So it's a contribution as basic as that, as simple as that, but it goes a long way in terms of getting or feeling diversity in the unorganized sectors as well. So that's kind of my pitch for this question, at least.
Thank you so much, Somesh. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes we forget, that part of our country, the Bharat that we might speak about. And glad that you brought that onto the table. Seema, can we have your views on this?
Yeah, thanks, Nirja, for this opportunity. I'm truly excited to be part of this forum today. I think I would just like to highlight what Geeta and Somesh just said, that diversity starts with equality. I think equality and inclusion are the core for diversity. And why we are talking about diversity is more because we see that there's a declining trend, despite all the positives or all the benefit that it brings in. A lot of researchers we must have read that when there is a diversity, it's directly linked to profitability of organizations. But yet we have various challenges. We have a lot of different challenges, including unconscious bias. We have challenges around attrition. We have challenges around women playing a larger role in the society. So women often are having a primary responsibility of their families and various aspects. So I think as organizations, we have to start looking at making things better, making things work to improve the diversity ratio. And that mix is definitely going to bring in a lot of cross-pollination of ideas. And I've seen that especially having a right representation of women and men in organizations, particularly in the leadership groups. We have seen that there's a good amount of balance in the organization dynamics that we could see, and we certainly see a lot of other important skills and benefits that we have seen with maintaining a good ratio of women workforce. Some of the skills like what Somesh also added was a little more agility, a little more, they come with a natural tendency to multitask. And I think they also have a lot of tenacity within them to not give up when there are challenges. While I said I still believe in equality, and I would not mean that the other gender doesn't, but there's a natural inherent trait in women to take on a little more and sort of still keep going on. I think this is what complements the whole exercise or the focus on diversity. And that's what we are currently focused on in my organization as well.
Thank you so much, Seema. Lavanya, can we hear from you?
Yeah, so actually, while we have heard what women really bring on to the table from all three of you, I think so what we really need to manage is perception. Actually, if you ask me, it's about perception, about what people think each of us kind of bring to the table. Why I want to actually talk about that is when you talk about a leader, I'll just give a couple of examples. Just when you talk about leader, people really only talk about, how competitive they are. Are they really, quick in decision making? How confident they kind of how confident they are they assertive? These are the leadership qualities which people really look up to when they kind of see a leader. And then when you summarize these qualities, typically it is always viewed as a male. Okay, a male only is like really viewed that way. Okay, so but now with things changing, people are talking EQ is the next big thing for leadership. People are not really talking about empathy. Like, can a leader, does he need to be empathetic? Does he need to be collaborative? Does he have to be a great communicator? Actually, a leader has to be blend of all this. And I think so women being very adaptable, and when I really see a lot of people who are at leadership roles, whether it is men or women, have to have this combination of both. How do we kind of break this stereotype to say that women only have to multitask or women have to be empathetic? I think so it has to be across. If we want to really have this, we need to have male champions of change also, who also bring about those qualities to really be empathetic, be collaborative, to actually create that diverse workforce. I'll just give a small example of what we have done. Our customer service team is run by 100% females. Okay, so from the team lead to the executive who attends the call, everything is actually done by a female. So we have like a complete department which is done by females. So where we see what we have seen there is that overall we have had lower attrition than what we had seen earlier when we had a mix. Our customer satisfaction level is also much higher because people multitask, they really go that extra level to kind of solve the issues what customers come. So it also helps. So there is a business case what we have seen in terms of lower attrition, our better customer customer experience, which has kind of helped in the business also. So I have seen live examples on ground, but then I just feel it is about breaking that perception, that these are male driven roles and these are female driven roles, and give equal opportunities for everyone. That's my thought.
Thank you, Lavanya. So I really kind of, on my understanding and probably the understanding of everyone else who's been listening to us, is that there are some primary, and generalizing it, maybe an 80-20 rule works. Primarily, there are certain traits that women bring in, which are unique to that gender. And as of course, leadership has evolved over the years, we've realized that some of those traits are very, very important for leaders, whatever gender they may be, and hence those leaders who bring in an amalgamation of those are the ones who are kind of able to be better leaders. But a large number of women automatically come with these traits, which could be empathy, which could be multitasking, which could be relationship building, agility and adaptability, as some of the panelists said. And that's probably the reason why we believe that we need to focus on the women in terms of the kind of roles that are given to them, and hence the opportunities that are given to them. Let me move on to the next question, and maybe Somesh, you can start by answering this. So the economic benefits of bringing more women into the workforce, and I'm talking about the economic benefits to the organization as well as to our country, we spoke about the GDP, does not rest on merely bringing more women into the workforce, but instead in bringing them into quality jobs. We touched upon that in the previous question also. So can we know some of the best practices that are followed by Verifax to ensure that women are hired at all levels in the organization, but also to ensure that they are also grown in their careers in the organization across all hierarchy, across all different kinds of roles that could exist, so that eventually there are significant productivity gains, better business outcomes, and of course economic growth, leading to economic growth?
Sure. I think, Nija, that's a very, very thought-intriguing question, right? So let me just step back and give me about 30 seconds to do a boring stats analysis that we do at Verifax. So the current workforce that we have across all levels combined, our diversity ratio as we speak is about 40-60, 40 being women employees and 60 being male employees. And this 40% comes across all levels, all levels, be it the junior most level, the entry level, the analyst level. But it's also important at times that, we realize that I think, something that Lavanya just now touched upon, that gender diversity is also about roles that fit, right? So she mentioned the client service department. So essentially, there is a horses for courses treatment, right? So at Verifax, the kind of job that we do in terms of background verification, we have a lot of field visits that are accompanied as part of the job, where physically addresses needs to be checked and residential addresses and stuff like that. And that is a population across the country. As I said, that this is an organization which spans across India. The field executive population that we have are all male employees, because we feel that there is a certain sense of security which is needed when people are actually visiting personal residential addresses. So that's one part of it. But how do we counterbalance that to get the productivity at the peak? We also have a group of people who are known as the client account managers, and they are exactly double in count of the field executives that we have. And I think about 98 or 99% of that population is all women-driven employees. So the point that I'm trying to make is, taking a cue from Lavanya's point, is that when we talk about economic benefits to the organization also, we have to see where best can we fit our people, right? A little more statistics. In terms of the leadership role or the management role that we have in Verifax, my entire management team comprises of about 16 people, including myself. And 9 out of 16 people are women employees across the country, right? As I said, we have 7 branches. 5 of them are headed by women employees. The rest are by men. All the 7 branches, in terms of their deputies, which is the one down, are all women employees. What it does is, and I will again go back and pick up that trait which I mentioned in the previous question, Nirja, that there is an eminent skill of women being great and patient listeners. That gives them the natural ability to solve a lot of problems on hand. And, this ultimately improves the productivity. We also did one other survey very recently to see the tenure of the employees in the organization, right? And we were surprised, and very, very pleasantly surprised, that the tenure of women employees in the organization was far more than their male counterparts. Now, this is a huge boost. I mean, this is not only retention of talent, this is retention of your key talent pool, this is retention of knowledge, this is giving you the ability to present the same faces to your client and understanding your clients equally well, if not more. And that gives clients to do much more business with you, right? So, that's something that I think is very important in terms of this aspect of the question that you asked for, Nirja. And I thought that, those are my, few brief thoughts.
So wonderful, so wonderful. Why we may speak about, retention, and, there could be 100 myths about, okay, why women do not leave organizations, but look at, how it actually eventually helps the organization. And this was a brilliant example. Thank you so much. Seema, would you like to add to this? Anything specific from your organization in terms of, how the women are grown within your organization?
Yes, sure, Nirja. So we have our diversity strategy has 2 approaches. One is definitely through hiring. So we are, like I said, we are an equal opportunity employer. So rather than carving out roles for people, we say that we would like to provide an equal opportunity, and we also have targets specifically for various roles. And certain functions we have identified where we are like hiring more of women. In fact, we have a higher targets there. So that's one approach. Having said that, a larger and more impactful approach to us is retention. In fact, we have analyzed our previous data to see what really the trend shows, and we have seen that our attrition amongst women is lesser as compared to the other gender. And when we got a little deeper into what helps them to stay back, we saw that there are two aspects. One is a little flexibility during certain key milestones and phases. It could be their maternity, it could be their marriage, and so on. And these are very temporary kind of flexibility that they seek. But in the long run, we have seen that they've really stayed with us and contributed, and they've been very productive. So the other aspect that we strongly believe in is growth. We have seen that women who have had career progressions with us have had longer tenure with the organization, and some of them have already reached the senior leadership levels. So this is quite encouraging enough for us to have integrate them into these practices into our succession planning, into our training and development. In fact, we are currently running some special learning sponsorship programs for our women leaders. We sort of are giving them a little flexibility over weekends and asking them to, encouraging them to take up more and more courses. So this is our strategy, and it is helping us pretty well.
Thank you so much, Seema. Would you like to add to this, Lavanya? Anything from Zivami perspective?
Sure. See, one thing which we have really benefited.
Lavanya there? Otherwise, Geeta,
yeah.
You can go and then maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Lavanya, we can.
Okay. So I just wanted to add to whatever Somesh and what she was telling was that in Zivame, we have obviously seen benefit of having more women workforce across. I just want to share one small anecdote, so I also held operations. Like Somesh was telling that the unorganized sector, so we run warehouses. So typically it's a very male dominated kind of a sector, so where only male come to do picking, packing, lifting, because we think it's a very physically, it's a more physical activity. We did a pilot to actually employ more women there, so we got a bunch of people whom we kind of worked with a social NGO to kind of identify some people and help us in the warehouse. Considering we sell a very women-based product, we thought that, having women to kind of pick, the way they handle the product is much more delicate than what a man can kind of handle the product. What we saw that, because an opportunity was given to these women, the kind of impact they were able to create, the what I would say is the passion for the brand, the work, what they are able to kind of do, they really surpassed and improved and actually challenged the target. What typically men were given. Actually, they appreciated that opportunity which was given to them, so where we felt, and then we went back and asked them what are the kind of like support you need if you need to have more women workforce, all the advantages in terms of retention, people really working with you for very long. It is something which we also saw at a grassroots level in terms of what people work at, warehouse. Once we got that set of 20 people, they went and told couple of more people, and then we got like more than 30, 40, 50 people. And now we employ so many women workforce out there. So I feel the brand, the brand loyalty, the passion, what they get onto the table is actually infectious. Sometimes when we do sale event and these women say, no, we will stay, after 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I said, no, we are not allowed to keep you so late. But the kind of passion they bring, and when I go to warehouse, they are like so enthusiastic to kind of come and share their experiences. Many of them have children, but then how they kind of manage, and then still they come to work. I just feel equal opportunities, if you can create, it makes a huge impact, at least at that level. I would want to share that experience out there.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully said. And Geeta, I know you have varied experiences currently with Ecolab, but a lot of different kinds of organizations that you've worked with in the past. So would you like to tell us something from either your current organization or the past?
Yeah, sure, Neeraja. I think Seema, Somesh, and Lavanya have shared very valuable experiences. For me, it's in three buckets that it falls in terms of how do you ensure you provide opportunities and what have been the best practices, right? It starts with hiring, right? And it starts with building the pipeline, right? So I've seen some organizations where they engage with certain organizations with certain universities to build the pipeline, right? It's very important that you start working at it from a grassroots level, right? Where at a university level, you go and coach the women that the world has changed. There are people taking up much better challenges. So you don't really have to have those mind blocks. So you have to work at that stage, right? So I've seen some organizations where we work hiring from college, right? And once you get in good talent, it's also about retention, right? On retention part, while all policies, etc., are very, very essential, not taking away anything that all companies are doing to ensure we retain, very important is also for the individual to know what their development plan is, right? Or what's their end game in the organization? What is the organization looking at them, right? One is you do performance appraisals, you give them feedback, but then also show them what their next career path is. And that's something which I have seen in Ecolab is very, very strong, right? Every time there is a career discussion, especially with a diversity candidate, their next roles are discussed, their skill gaps are identified, and how the organization works to help them bridge that gap, right? So that's been key. And even in my career, it's been a very important part because while you take on new roles, let's not assume that everybody is going to be successful. So that's going to be a very important part as well. And the third, the most critical path is growth, right? You get people at junior level, you get them to middle management level, and then there is a lot of attrition that we see, right? So you're really not having the pipeline to grow them into future leaders, right? So that one of the best practices that I saw was in my earlier organization was in Praxair, and there is a percentage for every level that they have to maintain diversity ratio, right? And when there is an attrition in the middle management and the senior management, hell breaks loose, right? The country manager is answerable as to why there was an attrition from a simple reason that if you have attrition at middle management, you're going to take so much more time to build back that talent to then grow them into senior management, right? Your middle management is your funnel for for top management or board positions, right? So that is one measure, right? But how have they worked on it is another great practice that I'm also seeing here in Ecolab is all diversity, high potential, high performing candidates do have mentors and sponsors, right? Sponsors are quiet sponsors who work behind you in ensuring that you are given the recognition and made visible in the organization at the necessary forums. But mentors are people who actually help you overcome your mind blocks, right? There have been roles in the past when I thought I was not capable of taking, right? But I had an urge to take those roles, to raise my hand, right? And I've reached out to these mentors who actually helped me overcome my belief system, right? So I think the role we all play as leaders is to now be those mentors for very strong, high potential diversity candidates, right? So some of these are the best practices I have seen, Nirja.
Thanks so much, Geeta. So while I was listening to all of you, I was remembering what Sudhamurthy had said once. She, of course, we know her story of being the only woman, in the engineering college and how she kind of, grew from there. And in one of the, seminars, she was saying that women should go and say yes and put up their hands to all roles. The only time that I would, say that don't put up your hand or at least ask for something more is where you feel that the security is compromised. And Somesh kind of, very, very clearly told us why there are certain roles that the organization does not want to put women in there. But that was also a brilliant thing for Sudhamurthy to say that think about security is absolutely important for a woman, of course, for everyone, but we know that, with a woman, what could be certain challenges. But loved it when, Seema said that they have targets for functions. Loved it when you said that there are targets per layer and you actually question if at a particular layer there is attrition. So it is very intentional. That's what I want to kind of, tell the audience here that things just don't happen. You have to be very intentional intentional about bringing it women at every layer, and as well as growing them into every level, and really asking those questions if a particular role, like Lavanya said, may not be the right fit, but can we do something so that it becomes a fit in some ways, which is where Zivame has seen the change. The next question that I have in my mind after all of these insights, and maybe Seema, you can start by answering that, is beyond the formal training and skilling interventions, which is of course that all of us know is needed. Are there any other interventions that the organizations are looking at? And I know Geeta touched upon sponsorship and mentoring, but anything else that you have seen in your organization or for yourself, which kind of helps the women and the workforce to significantly contribute to the business outcomes?
Yes, of course. So there are various things that we do. One, let me just give you an example of, we have identified quite a few roles where we felt that we can provide opportunities for women who need to come back. They would have taken a break for their maternity, or quite a few women, especially in India, they relocate post marriage. So we have made sure that we have identified certain roles which could be a part-time to start with, where we sort of reskill them, and as and when they're ready to come on full time, they have been absorbed as full time employees. And this initiative has largely helped us in multiple ways, where as an organization, we felt we have some role, but we do not probably need to hire somebody full time. But it was a win-win situation for us. So we have partnered with various sources who sort of help us connect with these kind of talent workforce. And that's one of the opportunities. And we also have been very flexible to our women workforce, especially post maternity. We have quite a few leave policy improvements that we have done, be it sabbatical, be it part-time working. We also have given a different role options to people to switch for a temporary phase and then come back and do something different. So that's one of the initiatives from a flexibility standpoint. The other opportunities that we have been looking at within Incher to improve our diversity is also to make sure that leadership roles, right, a strong focus on succession planning. So when we plan the succession, even there we have certain targets to make sure that women do not miss the chance to grow up the ladder. And if they need some kind of a training or development support there, we have been providing them that. So yeah, it's helping us quite well. In fact, our diversity ratios have really been improving year on year due to this.
Yeah, I for sure will, agree with you on bringing women on a career break back, right? So I've kind of personally, worked with that sector of women, and that's a huge talent pool that used to get forgotten. I know that, now
Yes.
there are a lot of, organizations who are working in this space, and, other companies are willing to, open their minds to bringing these women who've taken a career break, regardless of 6 months or 5 years, but, really looking at the talent pool and, helping them get back to the
And it
workforce.
has helped us in the long run as well.
Absolutely.
It has been like a long-term investment for us.
True. So yeah, I do want the other organizations who haven't thought about this talent pool to really look at it. Lavanya, would you want to add something?
Yeah. Apart from what Seema has already spoken about, one thing what I have found helpful, and I've seen this in my earlier organizations and even in Zivame, we actually promote women to network better. Okay, I think so. For us to grow, one of the things what does not come very naturally to women, including me, is actually networking, right? So we are always so engrossed in delivering what is happening at work and then come back and deliver at home. So between both the things, we hardly take out much, we don't take out too much time to network. So I think so that is something which is very important as we kind of talk about career progression or growth, how we are able to network. So it's not like all things are obviously available within your organization, right? So sometimes um, okay, sometimes it's just important for you to create that system where you can express yourself, your views, kind of know how you can network and build your capabilities, and also gain from what others are doing. I think so that is one thing which I really want to add as a point to what earlier panelists have said about how do you promote. So how do I give opportunity to go and say whether it is attending seminars, going and talking, creating collaborations with other people where you help, your women to represent. How do you take your team member when you go and do negotiations so that they kind of build those skills? I feel that is a little bit that's something which we consciously kind of try to build within our women workforce. So this is something which my earlier manager also used to say. So I really feel I started seeing the benefit once you come out of your organization and start networking inside and outside of your organization. Even in trips to go and you personally do it rather than just doing it over a webinar or a telecon. I would always say I don't want to travel. I want to do it over a telecon. But the face-to-face interactions, the networking, and the kind of opportunities it brings, it makes a huge difference. I just want to add networking, and I know Neeraja, you do a lot of those sessions. But I think that is something which is very, very important for career progression for women.
Definitely. Thanks for touching upon that. Yes, it is one of the most important ways one can really nurture and grow themselves. And usually people get it very wrong. And that's why I take personal interest in doing these sessions to say what is networking. Anyways, that's for another day, but I'm glad you brought that point in. Geeta, any add-ons to this?
Yeah, I echo Lavanya's point on networking. It struck me very late in my career. And that exposure came in through BCIC, right? When I was just a young country manager for Praxair, actually the corporation pushed me into these forums, right? And I used to think, yeah, this is waste of time for me. I want to do business. I want to meet customers. I have to turn around P&Ls. But then I realized the power of networking after I started interacting, right? It takes the confidence to a whole different level when you meet equally or strong women. And there is so much learning that I've had. So as organizations, we have to make an attempt to give these exposures to our women associates, but also important is within the organization to have employee resource groups, right? Many companies have it, and that's something which is very, very important because it creates kind of a community within the organization, and that should be both male allies as well as female associates who can be part of it. Like in Ecolab, now we have male associates who are part of the women employee resource group, because some of the perspectives they bring in is amazing, right? Sometimes our own belief systems are our limitations, right? So what happens typically in these employee resource groups is we post things about women in the field. That is a thing, that is an agenda that Ecolab is driving. More women in the field. We want more women associates in the field. So we share these experiences that kind of creates a different belief system in women that, okay, even I can do this. And then they'll talk about, okay, what is limiting them? Another very important point other than networking is support system. For women associates to be very successful, very important is to have the right support system. Like in the past for me, when I've taken on new roles, traveled to different cities, relocated, the only way I've been successful is having to build a strong support system. And that has come because I've discussed with people within the organization or outside, right? So you've got to have a community where you openly talk about these challenges and we contribute by giving solutions when somebody puts up these kind of challenges in those employee resource groups.
True. Yeah. And when you were talking about how, Praxair pushed you into BCIC, I remember the story of Capgemini, and quickly, maybe 30 seconds, I'll mention that. So I was working at a client place and I had to work from within the client organization, right? And it's extremely hard to get out from the client organization to pay a visit to your, home organization. And in Bangalore, for those of you who live in Bangalore, you know that, Bellandur and Whitefield, and there is no way somebody wants to commute just to do networking or, to attend a Capgemini level meeting. And my manager had put me there and I had fought with him to say, I'm not going to waste 4 hours on the road just to attend that 1 hour meeting every month. And he told me, you just be part of that group. If you can attend, great. but do not say I'm not going to be part of that group. In 12 months, if you can do 4, that's good enough. They need to know that there is a Neerja who exists and who represents this client. And I will tell you, even those 4 meetings that I attended in the year was so phenomenal in terms of my own growth. So I definitely, will, vouch for that. I think organizations have to make interventions of these kinds, possible beyond just training. Somesh, the last man on this particular topic.
I just realized on this question how difficult it becomes to be the last person speaking on a question. But, I was just reflecting and, it kind of took me back to my childhood days. And I'm not trying to take sides, but as a child, when in school or otherwise, there was some artwork that was needed to be done. And, you were given certain things that, figure out and make something out of it. I still remember that, I would always look up to my mom or my sister that, help me make something out of this. I have no clue to make what of it. And every time they would actually make something out of it and then give it to me and I would take it forward. As I grew up, and I passed through various roles and various organizations, what I have seen is, and this is maybe a natural trait, maybe something that I have seen, maybe not a perspective necessarily, but women in general are much more creative than men. And I think that as a policy is something that we try and exploit in Verifax. When it comes to innovations, when it comes to ideating, and there are times when we land on it with a blank board or a blank piece of paper, right? So we've introduced the sandbox concept and said, you know what, we want to do something different. This is the whole global, goal that we are trying to reach at. You tell us what to do. We've invariably found that, women have been very forthcoming in terms of their ideas, in terms of, giving it a certain creation or a certain shape. Becomes a little global for me to say that, women are enticed back with creation and all of that, but keeping it to the subject, we always felt that the creativity is something that comes as a very natural trait in women leaders today. As a result of that, what has happened is whenever there is an innovation idea, whenever there is something to ideate on, we've let women lead that effort. And, that has brought about a lot of benefits to the organization today. Of course, Neerja, you mentioned that there are formal trainings, there are formal committees. There is a POSH committee that we have, which is, predominantly led and held by women. I think there is only one person who is a male rep there. There are several other trainings which are done. There are several other things which is introduced into the workforce. But this is the time that I also get a feeling that, understanding the meaning of diversity is very important. So gender diversity is just one aspect of it. I mean, India is such a beautiful country, right? I mean, you have gender diversity, you have education diversity, you have culture and language diversity. So how do we bring about and respect all of that? Very small thing, and this has nothing got to do with gender diversity. We have a particular dedicated room, which doubles up as a prayer room and a meeting room, right? We in our own rights feel that, that's again a way to address diversity of religion. We've seen people feel so much at home. They don't feel like, okay, they have to get themselves cocooned into a corner to get that part of their religion addressed. So, those are some of the small steps that we've seen happening, and we've very, very consciously encouraged in Verifax as an organization. I keep saying one thing that, horses for courses, horses for courses. about a month or two back, I received a call from a lady uh, who was speaking to me from Ahmedabad and, wanting to engage with us in terms of some services and all of that and stuff like that. And, I, in, it was something which happened very naturally. I mean, I didn't do it as a very conscious effort. But my branch head in Mumbai, she happens to be a Gujarati, right? I just asked her to follow it up and do a lead and all that stuff. And a couple of days back, Nija, this lady actually calls me back and said that, Somesh, I don't know whether it was a very conscious effort or not, but wavelengths matched. In just one instance, I got the right man for the right job. Thank you so much. It was a very small gesture. I mean, it happened luck by chance, to be very honest. I didn't do it purposefully, but that gave me a sense of diversity and how to connect the dots. That's very important in diversity, is what I feel. So, creativity, and obviously with creativity comes the thought process that what do you do with those ideas? How do you take those ideas forward, and being transparent about that? And then leading on to the other parts of diversity in terms of religion, language, as I mentioned. I think those are very, very important aspects apart from the gender part of it, is what I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I'm taking back here is that while we try and give those trainings and other interventions to people so that they are able to go into other roles, also reflect on what is the core strength that this particular person slash gender slash organization, that particular group is bringing in, and seeing how we can mold that, how we can channelize that strength, which is so beautiful. And I know that our audience will be willing to ask questions, and so I will come to the last question from my side, and then we will open it up to the audience, and I will request Rupa if you can help me get the questions from the audience. So in closing of this discussion, while diversity is a big agenda item and now we understand how one can really be intentional about it, inclusion is even more important, right? So we can do everything right in terms of hiring, in terms of growing them into higher hierarchy levels and all of that, but for them to feel included in every aspect of the organization is even more important. And if you could tell us some ways that you've kind of forced the organization and the rest of the people to make the women feel included and the organization become more inclusive. And Lavanya, could you start?
Okay. See, usually, there are always roles which are male dominated and which are female dominated. One of the things what we have done is all male dominated roles, we have female as leaders. Okay. So whether it is finance, whether it is sourcing, typically sourcing is something which only men do, so because you have travel, you need to go to the factories, you need to go there. Operations, yeah, we had, my earlier predecessor was a male, but there was never a thought when my CEO offered that role to me, saying that, would you be willing to take up operations, which means that I go stand on the ground on the warehouse and interact with all the people. So best way to actually show inclusion is how can you break the stereotypes, in terms of what are, and actually the other way also, our designer is actually a male, imagine a lingerie designer being a male, yes, but we are breaking stereotypes. So we are breaking that biases to say that these roles have to be men or these roles have to be women. The movement, people below you kind of start saying that, yes, there are women who are leading and who are actually, our CEO is also, like our CEO is a female. But then in terms of other roles, where we are seeing, and then our HR head is actually a male. So what we have done is we have really we had taken conscious effort to break the stereotype, a woman lingerie person, actually a sales head is a male. So how can you break that stereotype to say that all roles can be performed by different people? So there the gender bias really goes away. And then you start really promoting diversity. This is something which I've really learned here. It's about challenge the status quo, like really push. We would, like sometimes when people come for interviews to our company, they start thinking, a women lingerie brand. I said, yeah, but do you know what kind of revenue we do and what do we sell? So it's about breaking the stereotype to really push. I feel roles have to be on merit, and need not be gender driven. And that is something which we have broken, whether it is on the warehouse, whether it is in the customer care, whether it is in our retail. I think so everywhere we are trying to push more women to say that yes, you can kind of do it, and that gives the confidence. And even our peers and other people in the organizations are also kind of looking at it. I feel the best is that when you have the intent, you definitely can make the impact. That's how I would want to kind of summarize.
Thanks, Lavanya. Geeta, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so carrying forward the intent part of it, I think today the intent exists in a lot of organizations at the board level. And if I just look at Ecolab, their board representation is nearly 32% are women, right? Which is quite strong, considering from where in just 3 years they've moved it from 20% to over 30%. But what we do realize is, are we really inclusive at a very ground level, right? For example, I've seen when I walk across the office, there are groups of men who go down for chai, right? Their team members are left behind, right? Or there are men who go with a customer for golfing, right? The sales manager who is a lady is left behind, right? There are these unconscious acts that we do that kind of goes against inclusion, right? So consciously making people realize some of these things are very important for inclusion. And I loved what Ecolab did 2 weeks ago is something called Day of Understanding, right? They dedicated the whole day for something called Day of Understanding, where they shared multiple stories of such moments where women or people have not felt included at a generic level and made people realize it. And every leader, every people manager is a leader, right, had to make an inclusion commitment, right? So when you make your personal commitment, you're always conscious and aware of it, right? So one of I want to answer your question by saying my inclusion commitment that I made that day on Day of Understanding was I will walk the extra mile to provide access to equal opportunities and resources to all, so that it creates an environment that enables my colleagues to bring their best self to workplace, as none of us is smart as all of us put together. Right, so this is my inclusion commitment that it went up on my page on my LinkedIn. So every time I'm in my leadership meeting or I'm talking to a salesperson or talking to a women employee or anybody, I'm always aware: am I talking with bias or am I including them in the real sense, right? So that I think has really changed the way I look at it. There are a lot of biases in our minds which stops us from being included. Awareness is the way that it's a journey, Neeraja, right? We really haven't got there, right? But just being aware takes us much closer.
Right. And I really wanted to bring in this point because I think the achieving the diversity target, for a want of a better word, is the easier part, I must say. But really building inclusive workplaces is so difficult. And let me, add a story here. Being a woman, I myself, could not empathize with another woman who had taken a career break because I had never taken a career break in my life. 25 years non-stop, right? And when I went to a conference, which was for women on a career break, and when I heard their stories of how hard it was for them to even reach to an interview stage, is when I started empathizing and I said, I will do something. And the personal commitment, I said, I will do something even if I can make a change to one woman's life. And that one woman's life has, of course, taken me where I have, reached today. But it is so important for all of us to have these days of understanding, because we don't understand. And I don't think we have to blame anyone for that. It's the way we have grown up. It's the circumstances that we might have been privileged as against, the others. So it's important that we, bring in these understandings and then make those personal commitments. I think it'll automatically come. So, Mesh, I don't want you to be the last one this time. So we will allow you now.
Thank you, Nija. And I think, Seema will now be, feeling bad the way I did. But sorry, in terms of inclusion, right? And that's a very, very key and important part of the D&I part of it. it goes back to the first question where we were talking about including women at all levels in the organization, right? Their thoughts matter, their participation in key decision making matter. What we do at Verifax, and this is something that we've done very, very consciously, right? When I touched upon the fact that most of our branch heads are all women employees. What I also want to add is that the HR head, the operations head, and the delivery head, and the compliance head are also women employees. So the inclusion process comes automatic. I mean, there is one sector where you say that, okay, we've got to strive to get in ideas and we've got to strive to make things inclusive. And here is another aspect where inclusion is a compulsion, right? So we try and, at every point, we try and address the process, Nirja, and we let the output happen automatically, right? So that's my take on inclusion, basically. That, how much we let our women leaders participate in the discussion, and they literally drive the discussion, and it's a very healthy discussion. I mean, the kind of perspective and diversity in those discussions that come across the table is worth. What we also thought of doing is, while DNI as a tick in the box is a very easy thing to do, that okay, this is my percentage. We break it up, as we said, that I told you that 9 out of 16 of my management population is all women employees, which is about 56%. We always try and engage in an informal kind of a KPI, KRI, KRA system. We break it up in terms of learning and growth. Then we look at the internal businesses and the processes. Then we look at the customers, and then ultimately the stakeholders. This is a value chain that we follow. We have a lot of 360 feedback processes that we have in place, which empowers all employees, be it women, be it men, to come back and voice out their thoughts even without being named at it. And these are some of the things that we really do. And then we look at our internal stakeholders and our external stakeholders in terms of customers, so to say. And of course, the final, the promoters or the board of directors, that's always there. But while we develop these 4 landing stones in terms of building up a KPI, I can't say that we are there. I can't say that it's perfectly measurable, because I think at the end of the day, inclusion is a feeling, right? You cannot assign a numeric value to it, and unless you assign a numeric value, it's difficult to be measured. But that's what we do. Ultimately, you've got to build an ecosystem, and around the ecosystem, some kind of levers around which you could measure it. Because as I started my conversation, that DNI is a process. It's not a one-time activity. And the more organic it is in terms of the development, the more sustained it is. Inorganic is good, but it may not be sustainable. So our effort is to make it sustainable and hence organic at every stage and every level that we try and endeavor.
Thank you so much, Seema. I just want to tell the audience, please start putting in your questions in the chat box and we will start addressing them. Of course, we can see how many we can take, but for sure, we will take a couple of questions from the audience. Seema, please go for this one.
Sure. Yeah, so I largely agree with Somesh, Lavanya and Geeta. They pretty much have covered a lot of points. I would again like to say that inclusivity, it's a practice, it's a discipline. And as organizations, we need to have an open mindset and not just acceptance, but also we need to celebrate the differences. And I think it's a continuous process. So we see that while consciously people want to be inclusive, people want to participate and not discriminate, but there's a lot of unconscious bias that exists. And what we need to do as an organization is constantly make sure what are the various points. It could be at the time of hiring, it could be at the time of promotions. At various stages, we need to have very objective parameters set, either to hire people or to promote people, so that we really do not get impact their growth or their hiring decisions based on the unconscious bias. Like I said, the roles, it's a role or the role requirement that has to define who gets selected versus the gender. That's one. We also consistently train our hiring teams, hiring managers on, how they can avoid the unconscious bias. We provide them with various scorecards to make sure that they don't really look beyond what they have to look. So that's one of our approaches that we do here. And the same applies when we are like promoting people to senior levels. We sort of completely look them with a lot of openness, give them stretch goals, give them an equal opportunity to prove themselves before we decide that somebody is fit or unfit for that role. So I think it's more and more openness that we need to have as an organization towards celebrating, start with accepting differences. And like Somesh said, it has to be a continuous process. It can't be like a one-time activity. That's what I have to say about this.
That's right, yeah. And I think, we have to start becoming very intentional about it, but I'm sure over a period of time, it just kind of becomes part of the DNA. And the hope is that it'll become part of the DNA, and, there will come one day when we don't have to have a panel discussion on this topic. So
I
I
look forward
would
to
like to, invite the audience to ask us questions. Either you can use the chat or you can unmute yourselves and ask the question. If you wish, you can direct it to a particular panelist based on, the company, the organization, the sector that you come from, or you could kind of, just let it be, open to all. We probably will take 2 or 3 questions because we are at 4:19 and we have one more thing to cover in today's agenda. So yes, any questions from the audience? I'm looking at the chat box. I don't see any questions there yet. You can also unmute yourselves and please ask the question.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam. My name is Ashok from Toyota Kirloskar Auto Parts. Okay, I am part of this internal complaints committee of prevention of sexual harassment at workplace also. Anyway, it was good discussion on diversity and inclusion. What I want to know is diverse means gender neutral policy will be better, or promoting more gender diversity will be better? This is one question. Okay, in general to any of the panelists also. Okay. And one more thing is, since this has to come from right from the childhood, education is the key actually, for which I think India covers most of the rural places. How to take care in rural places also, apart from business sense, what I'm asking this question. I hope it's clear.
Thank you so much. Anyone who wants to kind of answer the question?
Nija, if you permit me, can I?
Sure, please do.
Shok, hi. In terms of your second question, I'll take that first. In terms of the rural sector, right? I mean, that's the sector that I said at the start of my, the first question, that's the unorganized sector, where there is a lot of hand holding and everything that is needed, right? So it's very easy for us to do it in an organized sector amidst these calls and everything, but it is us who need to consciously handhold people and do this in the unorganized sectors. You would typically see that in the rural sectors, there are places where there is a diversity population which is employed. It is up to us to get them into equality standards in terms of their pay, in terms of their remuneration, in terms of their work type, and so on and so forth. It will take a lot of time because, at the end of the day, that's the sector which is still not, woken up to this, or is just about waking up to this. So for me, it's a continuous process really that we need to do in terms of bringing up the rural sector. In terms of your other question, that whether it needs to be gender neutral or gender diversity, was that question in reference to the POSH policy that you were referring to?
Not really. Means we should promote more of gender diversity or gender neutral policy, since we visited many companies also wherein they practice gender neutral policy as their policy actually, and which has given good results in terms of empowering women also. Which will be better? This was my question. I hope it's clear. The question is clear now, Mr. Somesh.
So yeah, sure. So some of the other panelists can definitely add on, but in my personal view, whether it needs to be a gender neutral or gender diversity policy depends on the nature of the organization and the scope of work they're doing. While gender neutral is also fine, but one should have or one would have to keep in mind that there has to be a flavor of diversity in it. Now, if diversity is achieved with the neutrality policies in place, there's absolutely no problem in it. However, if the neutrality policies finally do not promote diversity, that's when you need to intervene, or one needs to intervene and get in the diversity equations in place.
Yeah, so some of the things might be easier to, get to in terms of gender neutral. Like we can talk about parental leave instead of maternity leave. Or I know that might be organizations doing paternity leave, but if you make it a parental leave available, then you kind of are becoming gender neutral. And then maybe that bias of should I hire a woman and ask her the question of are you married? Are you going to have kids and when? And all of that might go away. But yes, as Somesh said, I think you need to balance it out. And I will take one last question. Which is there on the chat from Sunil. In the race to bring in diversity among gender, somewhere we have overburdened women. You can take example of unorganized sector. Their women work at office and later at home. They have been multitasking, but that has sparingly happening with men. There should be some balancing roles also. Great question, Sunil. Would one of the women in our panel want to answer that?
Sure, Neeraja, I can take that.
Right.
While I agree with his observation, okay, but one thing how we can really change is how do we bring up our boys. I have two boys, and I feel that it starts really early from our childhood. It is about how you kind of say that it is not only women who need to kind of work at home. Men can kind of do equal participation. Unless and until there is diversity maintained both at home and at work, we will not be able to achieve. So if you want to promote women at work, we need to actually promote men at home also, So I think so it is about equality in all places. And that's how we will be able to solve that. But I feel finally the choice should be given to women on what she wants to do, So that's my closing comment on that.
Thank you so much, Lavanya. And I know this is a topic that we can, speak hours on, and we just wanted to trigger this, a discussion and trigger some, mindsets, and we can, of course, take it forward from here. But I would now like to move on, to the last agenda for the day, and would really request Augustus to come and tell us a little about the interventions that we could possibly make. And we've been talking a lot about the unorganized sector, we've been talking about the marginalized, we've been talking about the rural segment. And regardless, we're talking about catching them young, okay, which is where even the roots of the problems, emerge. And one of the things that I also read and strongly believe in is that going forward, one has to really look at technology being an enabler for all of us. And hence, why is it and how can we make sure that the girls in our country and globally look at technology, science, technology, engineering, and math, what is called STEM, as a very, very important aspect in their life, and hence choose their careers around this space. And what is it that we as companies can do to kind of enable that? Let me quickly introduce Augustus. He's the chairperson of Human Resources and Women Empowerment and Leadership Expert Committee in BCIC. He has more than 2 decades of experience in the HR function. He has gained a deep understanding of the constantly changing business and is regarded as a subject matter expert and thought leader in people strategy. He has also led public policy initiatives in simplifying the labor ecosystem. He is credited with setting up an employer brand that supported IBM's growth in India. Currently, he is managing the employee and labor relations at IBM. Over to you, Augustus.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I hope I'm audible. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Somehow I can't see myself on the screen, but that's okay.
We can see you.
Okay, great. As long as the charts are out there. I think that was a very engaging discussion, and I truly enjoyed it. Some very interesting points that came up for it. But the thought that definitely crosses our mind is, are we equipped for the future? Do we have the right pipeline? All right. And are we being reactive to situations around us? And therefore, there is a need, right, typically, to create science, technology, engineering, and math knowledge in girls, especially. And why? And how did this vision come about? Okay. And what I'm going to take you through very quickly in the interest of time is what has been required to do this, what is the ecosystem that we need, the challenges that we faced, and also how do we partner with government, the private sector industry, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at it, statistics say that women make up 14% of scientists, engineers, and technologists in India. That's against a global average of 28.4%. So, looking at our vision, here at IBM, we said that we will commit to train 200,000 high school girls in the next 3 years. Okay. And that vision was articulated at the highest level in the organization by the chairman of the company, and a commitment made to the highest authority in the country, the Prime Minister of India. And with that commitment, we went on to say how we will go and enable 2 lakh girls, starting with secondary and higher education. All right. Now, that was a daunting task, given that we do have a lot of challenges in terms of our unconscious biases, culture, and other roadblocks. But if you look at this chart, basically is a scoreboard. All right. We have already trained more than 30,000 girls in STEM. Okay. And if you see what came out of it, is it also stemmed the rot in terms of people leaving after class 10 or after high school. And then, while there is a lot more to go, we know we can't get there without enabling the ecosystem. So, teacher training is very core to it. And then, to overcome certain cultural barriers, we need to create awareness among parents in terms of why it makes sense to have STEM education for the children and for them to continue their education after class 10 or even beyond that. Okay. Then comes the boys. All right. And why should we engage this ecosystem, which I would call male allyship? So having males as an ally is very, very crucial to driving this agenda. And needless to say, the other stakeholders, the government and various other agencies. Now, if you look at this, I'm going to talk typically about the limiting factors here. Okay, one is the girls continue to drop out because of various commitments at home or in the community, and sometimes this is confirming to the stereotypes that we've always been exposed to. So we need to overcome that, which is a cultural thing. Then there is an economic issue, in terms of getting more people to work for the family, that drives women out of STEM education sometimes. And then the lack of motivation is the requirement, to have more role models, okay, and to people who can inspire them, where they can see and touch face to face. Then our education system needs to have a very clear content which is culturally relevant for the children. Okay, this could be within their own language, or which is culturally relevant in terms of addressing some of the challenges that they have in their own particular region or their system. And to do that, you need to have the right infrastructure. So infrastructure and curriculum and undergirding all this should be affirmative action that comes not just from the organizers, but from the government and various other stakeholders. Now, this affirmative action was made very clear as more and more states signed up for STEM education in schools. So, which means that we got our curriculum adopted by state education boards to be part of their portions or curriculum. So that to a large extent is today driving the vision to go and engage and empower 200,000 girls. Now, when you look at states as a priority, this would involve engaging the states at the education minister level and various other levels and articulating to them why it makes business sense to do this, all right? And also why it will bring about a social transformation as well as skilling, because skilling we need to increase our productivity that the Prime Minister's office is so clearly driving today. Coming closer home, it needs to start from our own people, our own offices. Okay, so employee engagement should be core to this, where we go and tell our employees, look, here is our social commitment. How many of you would see that this social commitment resonates with the objectives that you have, your value system? Okay, so social engagement, volunteerism, using our employees. So when you have your employees going out there and standing in a classroom and teaching these young girls about STEM and equipping them, their inspiration gets triggered. Okay, then they have hope, and then they say, yes, I want to be like this akka, I want to be like this auntie. So the inspiration value is very, very high. So it's important that we drive our employees to volunteer in these activities. Last but not least is, engaging the government, the ecosystem, and of course the media, to create that positive mindset among all the stakeholders. And here we see the media has been speaking about it, and therefore, we've been able to advance this in a very, very positive manner. But my last chart is the most important chart in terms of how this is going to happen. Now, this will not happen without all the people that you see in this chart, right? The partnerships or industry partnership and stakeholders. You need somebody to do the content design. And like I said, the content needs to be relevant, it needs to be social, and it needs to be delivered probably in the language of that particular region, all right? Then you have who is going to deliver it. How is this going to be delivered? Is it face to face? Is it online? And if it is that way, who will be your ISP? You need to get the internet service provider coming into some rural location also. Then who provides the hardware? So somewhere a hardware company comes into the picture and says, okay, I'm going to give you 100 laptops. Okay, so that happens. And then advocacy, volunteerism, and overall this is the program management. Getting all these pieces together should be that employer or that particular contributor, and we need to continue to grow the funding for this. And that's where CSR is at the core. So if we get CSR funding to look at something like this in all our member companies, I think to a very large extent, we will be able to clearly develop a pipeline and provide a true professional career to these young women in our society. So with that, thank you very much, Neeraja and Rupa. Let me hand this back to you.
That's such a brilliant initiative, and I'm glad that we had this opportunity to present it to everyone who's attending this. I got to know of this because I was working at a college prior, and then I had engaged IBM to see whether we could bring it to our schools. But there are so many such initiatives that we aren't aware of, and we must make the best use of it. Every organization must see what we could do to kind of champion the cause. Rupa, what do we have going forward? Is Mr.
Dr. Augustus, we have our President, Mr. Parshuraman. So welcome, sir. Welcome, Mr. President. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Lavanya. Thank you, Augustus, and thank
Welcome,
you all. I first of all congratulate Bangalore Chambers for organizing this wonderful event today, especially in the right time. on the gender diversity, which is the need of the hour and the topic of discussion. In fact, today we are talking about the growth of 25% of GDP, of our manufacturing GDP, as a percentage of overall GDP. I always think that this can happen only when we break this barrier. I think just I was hearing Mr. Augustus, he was talking about today only 14% of the girl students, are getting employed in the any industries and corporates. This is a very sad fact. Therefore, I think the only way I think we can really grow India, grow this nation, is break this barrier completely. In fact, it's not going to be easy. In fact, in the metro cities, definitely there is a huge awareness and things are definitely much, much better. But when I look at the remote villages of India, I think the kind of challenges the young children have, in fact, they don't have the toilets. And, it's really, really heartening. And many of them drop out from the schools because they don't have the proper toilets. And the sanitation and hygiene, which is the base of this nation, which is the fundamental, I think that is not available in many of the villages. And therefore, there are many challenges which we have to take it forward. Of course, under the Atmanirbhar, the Prime Minister of India also has launched several initiatives to promote rural employment and to provide rural infrastructure in many of the Indian villages, and also the power connection, because children drop out because they don't have electricity. And the kind of harassment these children undergo are something very, very difficult to hear. Therefore, this topic, in fact, this gender diversity has been discussed for several centuries. But I think the time has come that all of us should stand united for a common purpose to break the barriers, break all the walls, and bring in a common workplace, which is definitely the dream of all the thought leaders here. And definitely a nation like India should definitely progress to that kind of a level, because we have seen the kind of advantages the gender diversity brings in the corporates. At least I can see very clearly there is an enhanced work floor participation. Shop floor, all members are getting engaged. And even contests like quality circles, Kaizen movements, whenever there is an equal participation, we could see a fantastic output coming out of all these activities. Therefore, different perspective. In fact, you look a problem from a certain angle, but the other person looks from a completely different angle. And definitely, in fact, the girls are too sharp, which the students, male students, they fail to understand. In fact, I have participated in several forums. The girl children, they give a completely different perspective, out of box thinking. I think which is definitely very much required. And secondly, what is happening today is we are lacking in talents. Today, a country like India, I think especially this huge skill shortage is happening. And one of the main reasons for skill shortage is, lack of talented students coming out from the engineering colleges. And at least I'm able to see some increase in the engineering colleges, but we have got a long, long way to go. Therefore, another important advantage is there is a huge skill shortage in this country. And imagine 50% is a huge number. And many of these children start working and they start developing new skills. Especially the new educational policy is going to address several challenges. And I'm sure it will provide an equal opportunity, because students can learn from home. They can learn any subject of their choice. And you don't have to go to the formal school. Thanks to the COVID, the education can happen at home, thanks to the multimedia. So today the kind of a different mindset is happening. Therefore, this is another changing point. I'm able to see that this is going to bring a lot of new thoughts, and a lot of new girl children will definitely get engaged in many, many social causes and national building. And another important thing is staff retention. What we have seen from the industries, I'm sure Augustus or Lavanya will agree with me. I think the companies which had employed both men and women, they're able to retain the staff better versus a kind of only men employed. I think this scenario is also coming out in a big way. I've seen many factories in Japan, Thailand, Philippines, Australia, where even the women folks, they work in the shop floor and factories. In fact, largely in India today, we use them for assembly automation, automated factories. But I'm able to see them working like men. I think that's the way to go. And the biggest advantage, see, today I'm able to see a social cost. See, after going home, imagine, I always say that you are very happy at home if you are happy at work. Similarly, if you are happy at home, you will be happy at work. It's a vice versa. Similarly, you have equal participation in the office space. Naturally, you have an empathy. You are able to understand the problems of the other side mutually. And your mindset once you go home is completely different. Today, there is a big challenge, right? Men don't work. They only worry about going to office and coming. I think because they don't have that opportunity. Today, this diversity, equal diversity happens. I think it's an amazing opportunity. And definitely there will be a bigger purpose and there'll be peace and harmony at home. I think this is another big thing that I'm able to see. So another thing that what I saw is, I think recently there was a big polling that has happened, and companies which had larger participation of men and women, both equally, I think those bottom line and top line went, it went through the roof because these organizations were able to create the knowledge and excellence, innovation and creativity in their workplaces. Because imagine, customers, you have got 50% men and 50% women. And definitely a girl or a lady can understand the voice of a lady customer much, much better than the other person. Therefore, in terms of marketing, in terms of understanding the customer perspective, the customer thinking and expectation, I think this will help in a very, very big way. And when I go to United States and see a lot of colleges, this absolutely this kind of thing is gone completely. I'm very happy to know that. But still, advanced economies are doing that in Europe and United States. But the countries like India, Philippines, Indonesia, we have still challenges because still it is skewed. So there is a long, long way. But I'm sure, I think as thought leaders, these kind of forums and discussions, I think we should discuss in larger numbers so that through these platforms, we can enhance the knowledge and awareness. And today we can see the Vice President of United States, Kamala Harris, is from India. And she has really set a great role model to all of us. In fact, a lot of men have to learn from them. I think the leadership styles, I think what we were able to see from Indira Nuvi or Indira Gandhi, I think the great leaders, and even P.T. Usha or Sindhu, for that matter. In fact, I was very happy to see Sindhu talking in the leadership forum in Hyderabad, Telangana, along with Mr. Piyush Goyal. I think this is increasing. I think the mindset we need to break. There's nothing called a girl and a boy, and they are equal, at least better. I would say they are much better. Honestly speaking, we have to accept that fact that definitely they have the better knowledge, better sharpness, better awareness. See, unfortunately, men has got more ego, which is born with them, right? But believe me or not, once we remove that frill of ego, definitely the world is so happy. The family becomes very happy, workplace becomes very happy because we cannot accept. And in workplaces, I've seen, when some questions are asked to the audience, the men, normally they are the first one to raise up their hands. But I know that there are a lot of girls, they know the answer very well. They don't raise their hands because that fear of, that inhibition is there. I think this we need to break. I think this is one fundamental thing. In fact, if I look at the kind of knowledge levels, many times they are in a much better platform. But when opportunities come, they don't volunteer. That's because of several reasons. The failures of the past, the risk aversion in the society. I think these are all ingrained in their mind and blood. Therefore, I think as a nation, I think how do we really wake them up and give them that kind of confidence and bring them to the front line? I think we have a very, very important role to play because today, once we start, using their knowledge, intelligence, creativity, and contribution to the growth of the society, the growth of India, I think India will become a super mega power, super knowledge power. I think we can really beat any other country. Therefore, I think we should promote more and more of these kind of meetings we should go to more and more of villages, more and more schools, more and more houses. And I think people like Lavanya and Neeraja Madam is also there. I'm very happy to see. In fact, we have met in the last empowerment conference. I think you're all really change agents. I think you can really create a difference, and we are also equally there with you. In fact, as a team, we should really change this mindset. I think once that happens, then the whole world is a beautiful place to live and create a difference. So with this note, I once again congratulate BCIC, and I also thank all the panelists. I would like to make a very, very special mention to Mrs. Neeraja Ganesh, consultant, Kinergy Leadership Academy, Mrs. Seema Shinoy, Director HR and People Practices at Inkshare Technologies, Mrs. Geeta Srinivasan, my good friend, Managing Director, Ecolab, and Mr. Somesh Audi, CEO, Verifact Services. In fact, sorry that I could not join the opening meeting. We had a meeting with the Prime Minister's office. So just now that meeting got concluded and we had some follow-up meetings on developing a skill academy. So once again, I'm very, very happy. Only thing we did not have a physical conference this time, but we should compensate it by more number of these kind of interactive sessions. And I'm sure Augustus and Lavanya can bring the difference. Thank you.
Definitely.
God bless.
Thank you so much for those kind words and for those reflections. I don't want to miss an opportunity here because we have a very important person who has been a lawyer in the High Court, and she's been with us over the last 1.5 hours listening. So in just about 2 minutes, ma'am, I'm calling on Madam Roshan Dalvi to, give us some words or which could be part of your reflection or feedback or encouragement. Thank you.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
It was so good to hear so many young women talk about whatever I talked about years ago. And I was reflecting on it. And I may share just one example with you. It is called groupthink. Now, you see, when there was that recession in America in 2008, they studied why that recession went so bad in America. And they found out that it was because all the financial consultants were largely men. And therefore, you see, when they made their policies, they made it from the men's point of view, which did not take care of health, education, women's rights, or art. They just thought of making money. And when they could not make and the bubble burst, they came down. So they thought that diversity, even in this, is so important. And that was the program called Groupthink, where they said men and women must work together, even in financial sectors and in all sectors, So we go back to where we began. And that is the roots, as they say, the ball and the doll that we give the child, So many girls now want ball. They don't want doll, Even boys may not want doll, but whatever it is that they are attuned to, that we give them. And that is the phenomenon of nature and nurture. So the STEM, which Mr. Augustus talked about, is really the nurture of girls. I'm so glad to hear about this. And by the way, I'm writing a book on gender perspectives in the society. It is almost done and it will be going for publication. And I propose to write about this point also. It is an enumerative book, and how much can be done and how much yet requires to be done. What are the trials and triumphs of women? And how with our mindset can we break all of these things? May I give you one small a joke kind of a incident? That there was a man, and I was just thinking about Mr. Somesh, who was with us here. I can't see him now. I presume he's still here. And he was like, Mr. Somesh, talking all the time about equal rights and equal opportunities. He was the CEO. He had no time. He wanted to appoint a vice president. So he told his secretary that you eliminate all of these candidates who have applied and give me some. She got out some 10 candidates, but he had no time to look at all of them and their CVs. So he tells her, you just bring me in 2 best candidates. Now, knowing that he talks so much about equal rights and equal opportunities, his secretary asked him, "Sir, may I bring in one man and one woman?" So he said, "You forget all this crap about equal rights and equal opportunities. You just bring me in the two best candidates." And they were brought in, complete in their suits, together with their skirts. And that is gender neutrality. Somebody just asked whether we can be gender neutral or gender diverse. Now, initially, everywhere we require to be gender diverse. We in India are at that stage. We require diversity. We require the push. Once we come on par, when there is a level playing field, then we are gender equal. So now for you and me, we don't want to get any kind of favors or anything. We can stand on our own 2 feet. But for so many millions who cannot, we have to give them that push. And that is the beauty of womanhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roshan ma'am. I don't think we could have summarized it any better than how she did it. Thank you for this.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And with that, I have to come to the most important part, to express our gratitude. And with immense pleasure, I have to let you know what this was. It was just a concept. And we said, look, what will drive those companies to employ women? And we said we should say it makes dollar value. It makes business sense. And that's how this started. And it was a concept which I shared with the team. And Neeraja took it up in a very passionate manner. And she's a lady who has made a difference. She gave up a corporate career, and then she started her own entrepreneurial journey, focusing only on women diversity and areas related to it. And Neeraja, I must say that your questions were so deep, they were refreshing, and they were very relevant and thought-provoking, that the panelists, you were able to draw the richness of the panel and, enriched our lives so much with all that knowledge. So with that, thank you so much, Neeraja. And Neeraja also runs her own training and consulting organization in this space. So if some of you are keen to understand more deeper about this and would like to engage a consultant, Neeraja is willing to help you in that journey. So thank you once again. And as a token of our appreciation, we have a small memento that we would like to give all the participants and the panelists. So can we see that, Rupa? So this goes out to Neeraja, Sumesh Audi, Seema Shinoy, Geeta, Lavanya, and thank you once again. We will reach this memento. If it's still not up on your screen, you will get it at home. There we have it coming up. Oh, thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rupa. And yes, last but not least, is the support that we've got from the Secretariat, right from, meetings that we've had to the flyers, which had to go through multiple, changes. And Rupa has shown tremendous patience and commitment, to ensure that we had this program at such a successful level. So thank you, Rupa, and thank you, Prithvi, for being there. And of course, our president for coming here and sharing his thoughts with us and encouraging us, as well as the entire leadership of BCIC. Last but not least, all of you who have been with us right from the beginning of the session from 3:30 and providing your rich feedback and questions to it. So thank you so much once again. We'll continue to have programs like this. And for those of you who are not part of BCIC, please come to our sessions. You can become a member. Rupa and Prithvi will help you with the membership, and we would like to take it forward. So thank you so much once again. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Augustus.
You
Big
all.
thank you to you and Lavanya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Lavanya takes all the credit, sir. She did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.